I think the other thing that I really want a tutorial to teach me, which is not necessarily the mechanics part, but I kind of want to know what kind of game I'm playing. So Alex, we've played our fair share of games, a lot of like action games, RPGs, open world, you name it.
Just in general, a lot of games.
We've played a lot of games of a lot of different stripes. One of the things that you first encounter with a game is that they're going to try to orientate you into how to actually play the game.
Yeah, you gotta know what direction north is.
If there is not a compass in a game, and this is going to be important for like an open world map, I'm going to be angry. Because I kind of need to know what direction I'm in. But in general, they need to give you some kind of orientation into how you play the game. This is a tricky prospect when you start to think about it. Too much orientation is going to become a lot for you to absorb in a very short period of time. Starts to feel like almost the game monologuing how to play the game for you. But too little, and you get completely lost.
Sure.
And don't know what to do.
This really depends on like what type of game you're playing as well.
Yes.
For instance, going back to our previous segment on the show, Oh Dear had very light controls and was very simple.
Yes, and there were some mechanics that we didn't even figure out until, like, the end of playing.
No, you guys didn't figure it out because you didn't read the fucking thing at the
beginning. There was a big thing. That's the thing.
It wasn't that long. It was big text. One of the first things I do when I get in a game,
yes,
like a new game, is I go into the keybinds.
Oh, okay, smart.
And I look at what all the keybinds are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I go, okay, so there's some of this stuff going on, and if the game doesn't tell me how to do it, then I know that there's this stuff going on. Or even if I don't look at the keybinds, like in an RPG, the first thing I'm doing is testing all of my controls normally. Like, how do I open my inventory? How do I open all the things? I'm not waiting for the game to tell me how to do it. I'm exploring all the different keybinds that I have, what my keyboard options are, what they do, what the mouse buttons do, right at the beginning.
Sure.
I'm not waiting until the game goes, by the way, to open up your backpack because you just got an item drop.
Sure.
You know, your mandatory tutorialized item pickup.
Right.
I don't wait for that. I go, alright, if I have access to it now, it is getting opened and looked at.
One of the things that I do, especially in like a Souls-like game or a Metroidvania, especially those just because of how they function, is when they get you into that one starting room, is I just try out all of my buttons and just see what they do. Just kind of like get oriented with the like control scheme itself, because I kind of figure with a lot of those games, I might be able to jump, I might be able to block, I might be able to dodge or run, and I just kind of want to know what things do what. And I've kind of gotten into the use, especially with games that model them after like a Dark Souls, is that right up at the front, I'm going to try different buttons so that I can see what the mechanics are of this and how they function in the game. That is like a basic thing that I do. But if you're new to those games, you don't necessarily think about that. One thing, though, that I found really interesting about games that I appreciated and ones that I didn't is how they present the information really early on. And I can't remember what the name of the game was. I'll remember it later and feel stupid. But there was actually a Souls-like game where you played...
It'll just be here.
It will just be here. But you played a character, had like a plague doctor mask on and everything, and the first opening sequence of that, I think I've talked about it on the show previously, but the first opening sequence is just like stopping every 5 seconds so that it can give you this wall of text about the mechanics of the game, and then you say, okay, thank you, next, and then you're walking for a little ways, and then there's another giant block of text explaining this next thing. And I gotta tell you, that is one of my least favorite ways of delineating out information at the beginning of a game.
I think it's most people's least favorite way. Like,
yes.
Some people, I understand, get a lot from just reading it.
Right.
But present it in a better way. Show, for tutorials, especially in action games or in general in games, show, don't tell.
Yes, definitely show, don't tell. Something that I have seen, especially with games that are more action-oriented is going along and then showing that this button does this thing. And then this button does this thing.
One of the things games will do, action games especially will do, is they will tell you how to do a thing, and then you have to practice doing that thing a number of times before you can proceed.
Right, exactly, so that they know that you can actually do that. When they introduce a new mechanic, they like do this dodge or deflect or something 3 times so that we can tell that you've done it. But the other thing is that I've played quite a few racing games where they want to really explain the speed of the racing. And so instead of taking you out of the action, what they will do is that they'll like run you around this course continually. I think Redout 2 might have been one of the ones that did this. Run you around this course, and you're running around it like a mile a minute. And they're kind of like going, this is how you accelerate. And so you learn how to accelerate. Great. And you just keep running around this course, and then, okay, this is your roll button. This is your drift button. This is and so after you've done all of these maneuvers, you're continually going around. So like you're never stopping here. But you're getting those mechanics down as you want to learn them, and then afterwards, like, this has been your tutorial. Congratulations. And now we're into the game itself. Hope you had fun.
Yeah.
Presenting these things that kind of teach you how to do the game is much better than just showing a giant bunch of text on screen, which is boring.
And these are still preferential to games that do not tell you how to play them.
Yes. You know, it's kind of interesting because you might remember maybe a year and a half back, we did a special segment that was the untutorial, where we were, you probably don't, but...
I don't.
Okay.
I don't specifically, but maybe it'll come to me. It's fine.
I talked about the untutorial, which is basically teaching the player how to play a game without technically telling them how to play the game. And one of the examples that I used was Super Mario 64. Because in Super Mario 64, before you ever get into the castle, there's that big open area in the gardens. And you've got water, and you've got trees, and you have, like, all of these different elements. And if you want to explore out there, which, you know, why not? You learn how to climb, you learn how to swim, you learn all of these things. The game doesn't tell you any of that, but...
Well, no, that's just you're exploring the game world, and
right.
These are actions you can do.
Right, but the point is that in that one area, before you ever get into the castle, they give you opportunities to try out all of the different mechanics that you might need that are all the basic mechanics. There are places where you can get up to that you can only get up to by doing like a double or a triple jump. You know, like those basic mechanics you get without them actually telling you any of that. And then when you get into the game, even if you haven't discovered that, you realize that the way that you get there is by jumping 3 times, or, you know, they introduce those mechanics if you didn't see them before. One thing, even though I have a problem with the Souls franchise itself, in that I can never seem to do them, is that they will inadvertently tell you how to play the game without necessarily telling you at the start. One of the big ones I'm thinking of is in Dark Souls. The first boss that you come across is the Asylum Demon.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot beat the Asylum Demon by just running up and hitting it. The only way that you can really get by... I mean, I guess technically you could, but you'd have to be really good at knowing all the mechanics.
Some people do it.
Some people can.
Some people do it.
But you kind of have to know all the mechanics to do it. But if you're very new, there is an exit when you get there, and you can run away. And then there is a place where you go up and down, and then there is a place where you can jump off on top of the Asylum Demon and take out, like, most of its health with a downward thrust.
Yeah.
And once you see that and discover that, you're like, oh, okay, the game has told me, without really telling me, that 1, I can run away from some of these problems, and 2, there's alternate ways to deal with this problem that I didn't know about before. It's almost like that thing where there are scholars and warriors.
No, we're not going back to that.
Gotta get the ire up. On the other hand here, there have been some really, like, stupid, simple ways to deal with problems that I did not pick up on because the game did not actually...
Well, not even just that. There are games, and I'm speaking from playing Elite Dangerous for over 900 hours, I'm sure now. Playing Elite Dangerous, trying Star Citizen out briefly. Other space games especially are really bad at this. They go, here are your basic controls.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
And they go, these are your basic controls, here's how to do a little bit of combat, here's how to do a little bit of mining or whatever. But like, they're like, you're free. Go do what you want.
Yeah.
The game's an open world to do what you want with.
And you figure it out.
It's like, okay, I understand that you want me to be able to do whatever I want, but there are complex mechanics in this game that you're not teaching me. That I have to go find YouTube videos of people who have figured this shit out to figure out how to do it. Elite Dangerous has surface mining with lasers. They have abrasion blasting with a specialized abrasion blaster, which is like getting chunks off the surface. Yeah. And then they have a pulse wave analyzer you can use to potentially spot high yield asteroids that have cores in them. Mm-hmm. And you can go core mining, which involves going to there, shooting explosive torpedoes at it, and then detonating them all on like weak structural points of the asteroid to rupture it and crack it in half and get the gooey delicious insides out of it.
Right.
And the game does not teach you how to do this.
No.
I had to watch a video or two, probably 3.
Yeah. I almost find that to be a failing of the game design. If I have to go and look up, the second I'm like, oh, damn it, I have to go look up how to do this thing in a game, I'm like, okay, fail, guys. Like, I shouldn't have to do that.
And it's one of those things, even now, having done it several times, I go, this system could be better. The pulse wave analyzer, absolutely. I was talking to my coworker, who also plays Elite, who also plays Star Citizen, whatever. I'm like, I like core mining. I think it's fun. It's really satisfying to break an asteroid apart and go and get all the stuff that was inside it out. I've had a core of like Alexandrite. That's worth a lot of money. It's so rewarding. But the game does nothing to tell me how to do it, and half the time I pulse wave analyze, I can't tell whether it's the asteroid here I'm looking at, or one that's reflecting on it that is making it glow the color that is the color I want.
Right.
So it's like obscure, and they don't teach you how to do it. And it's like...
Yeah. It's hard because, like, on the one hand, especially with, like, open world games and exploration, you want a sense of discovery, but also I kind of want to know what I'm doing so that I understand how to explore. And that in lies the kind of dichotomy here, because we need to have some kind of information, but at the same time, I don't really want everything handed to me, because then the whole sense of exploration and discovery and learning about the game and getting that sense of discovery and even the associated dopamine levels is kind of lost on it. I do appreciate some games, like Elden Ring did this, which is the optional tutorial, which is basically like you get into the game and then they say, this is the Cave of Discovery, or I can't remember what it's called, but you know, you go down there and it will actually teach you about the basic mechanics, and it will do it in the text blocks and stuff, but you don't have to do it. If you know how to play these games, just continue on with your journey, have fun, do what you want to do. But if you want to learn the other mechanics, they introduce all of that in that place right up to giving you a boss, and then you do that and learn all of the basics. Just in general, if you were to give a little bit of a synopsis on what you'd want to see in player orientation, what are you...
From me?
Yeah.
Teach me the general controls.
Mm-hmm.
The basic controls, that is mandatory. Even if I'm going to explore them on my own, someone who doesn't play games often, again, I have this issue with World of Warcraft especially, because it assumes that people that are playing World of Warcraft have probably played it for the last 20 years.
Yes.
Or at least know anything about MMOs.
Mm-hmm.
So having Crave try to play WoW with me and going through the tutorial area, which has been so streamlined as to not be helpful.
Yes.
where it teaches you very little, and there's so much extra that it doesn't teach you that the original tutorial game did, that it's like, this is stupid. This is not a tutorial. This is expecting you already know half this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. That's not how to get new players.
Right.
I want a game to give me the basic controls on how to play it, how to do the things the game is primarily going to have you do, and then any complex systems, again, like the core mining,
Sure.
need to have a way. If you want people to explore them and experience them on their own, that's fine, but have a way that they can, in-game, either read up about the thing, how to do it, or have it be shown to them somehow as part of like a mission or a quest.
Yeah.
Or in games that don't have missions or quests, maybe have somebody, like, have it be a document. You can read this at that point.
Sure.
Where it goes, introducing the new technology core mining, where we do this, and it kind of goes, here's a synopsis of what you would do.
Right.
I think Hard Space Shipbreaker might have had something similar to like that, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. I think the first ship that you go through kind of gives you an idea of the basics, but then there are a couple ships that they have where they're introducing a new mechanic, so they give you a ship that represents those new mechanics, so you can play around with it first before you get into the main. Yeah.
And then some of the upgrades you can get, it doesn't tutorialize you on them, but it tells you, like, this is what this thing will let you do.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of experiment with it.
Right. When they're showing you how to, like, use the debt charges and stuff like that, they say, this is a ship that we're bringing into dock that's going to teach you about that. And they have you play around with that without it being, like, a big deal. And then you can move on to the next thing. Yeah. I don't want the game to explain everything to me. That is something that I don't want. But I do want enough that I can reasonably assume that I can interact with your game the way you want me to. So I kind of need to know some of the basics. There can be more complex stuff. It does not have to be presented to me right at the beginning. In fact, I'd prefer it wasn't. Leave that till later.
Leave it until it comes up.
Leave it till it comes up and show it rather than tell me about it. If there's a way to actually do it in the game where I interact with it, I would prefer to do that rather than reading a text block that tells me.
I think that's one of the things, too, is you don't have to throw all your tutorials in at the beginning of the game.
No.
You can have tutorials later in the game as they come up.
Yes.
Like, maybe you're playing a game that has a stealth option. And until you decide to try and use that stealth option, like, it'll tell you that you can use stealth, for instance. But it's not going to teach you how to use it until you've decided to use it.
Right.
That's fine. Because if I'm going in guns blazing or swords drawn and then crazy and just a frontal assault all the time, I don't need that stealth tutorial. Right. That's not going to help me. That's not my preferred playstyle. But, like, if I'm going to go there and it goes, hey, by the way, if you want to sneak in, you can. As an optional thing. I go, okay, well, let me try sneaking. And it goes, cool, you're trying sneaking. Let's show you how this bar and how these things work. Right. And what you can do while sneaking. So, like, I don't think you're required to necessarily, for that instance, show that right at the beginning. Like, if it's viable but optional, let the tutorial come when you're trying the thing. You know, Skyrim, the tutorial, it tells you all the different combat styles. It gives you all of it. It shows you how to use magic, arrows, swords, weapons, daggers, whatever. Yeah. It shows you how to do all of it. But generally speaking, for most people playing Skyrim, they're probably not going to use all of it.
No. You are going to focus in on one kind of thing that you want to do.
Yeah. And so, like, I feel like even then, you could have done that tutorial shorter. You could have gone, like, pick a spell book or a sword or whatever, like, and then when you equip it and start using it, it'll give you a tutorial on combat, sword-based combat. Sure. And then if you're like, you start sneaking, it goes, cool, sneaking, here are the things you can do sneaking. And then maybe you equip a spell, so it's like spells are like this or whatever, and your mana does this. Right. You know? Yeah. So maybe you're 20 hours in the game, and it's the first time you decide to equip a bow, and it's like, cool, here's the bow tutorial. It's like, thank you, I did not need this the last 20 hours of the game. Right. Now it's useful, and so now I'm going to use it. Yeah. I think that'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, 900 hours into Elite Dangerous, and there's still parts of the game I have no idea they work.
Right.
And it's not because they're not it's not because I haven't tried interacting with them and because they haven't tutorialized me or have it. It's because they have no tutorial for the parts of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't have any idea how to interact with it.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I really want a tutorial to teach me, which is not necessarily the mechanics part, but I kind of want to know what kind of game I'm playing. And that's something that is a little bit, like, if this is supposed to be a stealth game, I want to get the idea that there are stealth mechanics, and I want to know what those are. If this is supposed to be a combat game, I need to know the basics of them. I need it to be clear that that is something that we're going to be doing. If you want exploration, I need some elements that show how the exploration works, or mechanics that I'm using to explore the game. It's a little more subtle doing that, because it's not outright telling me the control schemes or like some stuff like that. But it does inform me how I'm supposed to be interacting with the game. And that would be very useful for a lot of these, because there's a lot of crossover between different genres and things like that, but there are specific kinds of ways that you play those games. And knowing which ones we're working with here is very useful. I want to know if I'm going to be scaling a building, or if I'm trying to, like, socially engineer my way in there, or if I'm trying, are there mechanics where I talk my way through a situation, or is that even an option? Like, get me at least an idea of the kinds of things that I might be doing in the game, so I know how I'm supposed to be interacting with it. This is something that is a little bit trickier with games that are like immersive sims, because the whole idea is to figure out the different ways that you can interact with the environment. But even then, you can show that there are multiple ways to go through the game. And there are some creative ways to do that. I guess Deus Ex would probably be a good example of that, because there is a whole tutorial of how to, like, do stealth and all of that when you're doing the training mission. But even if you forgo that and you just start on Liberty Island, the first conversation that you have with Paul is literally, I can give you a gun. I have, like, a stealth pistol, I have a sniper rifle, or I have, like, I have the rocket launcher. Like, what would you like? And so from right there, you get to choose a weapon that is going to be indicative of what you actually want to do. I could do a long-range sniper, I can have an explosive weapon, or I can have a stealth pistol that I'm going to be using. Okay, right there, I have learned that there are multiple ways that I am going to achieve this objective. They made it clear before I even get off the docks, Yeah. Very helpful. Very helpful. And it didn't really take much more than a conversation and a basic choice at the beginning to get me off and running, to tell me how to do the game. So stuff like that, very useful. I know that it can be very tricky for new game devs too, to understand how absolutely excruciatingly important getting player orientation is. But it really is one of the most important elements of your game in order for people to interact with it, because they gotta know up at the front how to play this game and the basics of it.
I've refunded games based on...
I don't know what I'm doing.
Based on playing them for 20 minutes and going, this game isn't explaining how to play to me at all.
I have refunded games because I literally was like, I do not understand what this is. I cannot play this game. I do not know or understand it. And there have been times where I've put games down for the exact other reason, which is that they're trying to explain to me everything that I'm going to ever have to do in the game in the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, can I please play something right now so I can see how it works?
Don't give me a lore dump, please.
I don't need a 5-minute lore dump. Please do not give me a 30-minute cutscene of Final Fantasy, please. Don't give me that at the start before we get in. I really just want to start playing to see what this game does, so that I can get into it. So yeah, player orientation, Very important. I think people have different tolerance levels for what they want and how the information is explained. Options in that is very helpful. Like I was saying, the optional tutorial missions and stuff like that. Understandable. But just be mindful that your players are not all up to speed, but they also still want to be able to actually play the game. Do you think that you need more player orientation or less? What do you actually look for in a good tutorial, essentially? Or do you even want one in the first place? Let us know in the comments down below.